on board. Farmers head to Parliament Hill, worried about high-speed rail. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
The top news stories
and conversations that matter to you.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
They are expected by the hundreds. Worried farmers from Quebec and Ontario protesting in front of Parliament Hill, concerned about the federal government's plans for a high-speed rail line between Quebec City and Toronto called ALTO. Gareth Madoc-Jones of City News spoke with farmers in Saint-Placide, Quebec. That's about a 90-minute drive from Ottawa.
Bruno Prou, who runs a dairy farm in the community, says that his biggest concern is that fences built on both sides of the railway would block roads that give direct access to farmland.
With roads be blocked by ALTO and fields be cut in half, what are we going to do? How can we get the feed for the cows? How we get rid of manure? It's a headache.
Prou revealed a map of farmland from the Ontario-Quebec border to Laval that he says has received contracts from ALTO to survey land, including his property, as well as another map that shows a 3-kilometer stretch of road where his farm and a number of other farms would be divided by the ALTO high-speed train tracks that could force farmers to take longer routes to access their entire properties.
To go on the other side of my farms, it's a 5-kilometer drive. But if I need to take other roads, the only roads that will be left open here will make me do 30 or 50 kilometers to reach the field that is just 5 kilometers away. It will completely destroy how you operate your farm. Margins in farming are very, 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 very tight, especially now with the fuel price.
The impact is cutting our land, reducing access to what we can farm. This time stamp that it will take to either do the detours if needed.
This opposition from these farmers is being echoed by many more in the agricultural industry in Quebec. Agricultural producers from Mirabel, Argenteuil, and Deux Montagnes are taking part in a peaceful demonstration planned for Wednesday in front of the Canadian Parliament to express opposition to the ALTO high-speed rail project.
We want them to know that they need to consider the impact it will have. It's never going to be a positive impact for farmland, for farmers, farm families, and the capacity to feed our constituents.
Gareth Madoc-Jones, City News, St. Placide.
In Ottawa today, MPs from both the Conservative Party and the Bloc Québécois are expected to speak to these protesting farmers. This week in the House of Commons, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre sparred with the government House leader, Liberal MP Steve McKinnon, about the project. McKinnon represents a riding in West Quebec.
Speaker, the leader of the opposition should talk to the national president of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, who has applauded systematically our approach to building big projects in this country, including, Mr. Speaker, the largest electrification of mobility in the history of this continent, which is a high-speed rail project which will employ more electricians than that guy could meet in 15 years.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
15 years? This thing won't even be under construction for 15 years, Mr. Speaker. And in the meantime, Liberal insiders and sleazebags will be stuffing their pockets with the tax dollars of Canadian electricians. Already, there are 13 vice presidents who have received $2.3 million of bonuses for a train that won't even be under construction for over a decade. And if it ever does, will cost $8,000 a family.
This is becoming a very politically charged project. The Carney Liberals have 44 seats in the province of Quebec. The province was key to delivering the Liberal Party a victory in the last federal election. And this is the provincial election year in Quebec, with a vote coming in October. And some Quebec politicians are questioning this project as it's planned right now. André Fortin is the leader of the official opposition in the Quebec legislature. He's a Liberal.
If the project doesn't go ahead in Quebec, it doesn't go ahead, period. There is no high-speed project between Toronto and Windsor. The federal government's project was to build a high-speed corridor between two provinces. So yes, for us, there are obviously changes that need to happen to the project in terms of the route that it takes, in terms of protection of agricultural land. We think there are improvements that can be made, but we also think it's a good project for Quebec and Ontario.
The front-runner to be the next premier of Quebec is the leader of the Parti Québécois, Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon. He wants the whole thing scrapped, saying Ottawa should just send Quebec the money so Quebec can spend the billions of dollars on other priorities like healthcare and education. One of his deputies is Joël Arsenault. He said a fast train is just not one of Quebec's priorities.
But now he's saying, no, this is where I'm going to spend the money, into a fast train. And we say, well, fast train, it could be a good idea. It's not our priority. It's not the priority we should have at this point in time in 2026. That's what we're saying.
Speaking with the press gallery this week, House Leader Steve McKinnon said in French, quote, project without Quebec. The Crown Corporation set up to manage the project says this rail line could cost anywhere from $60 to $90 billion. But there's a lot of doubt about that estimate. Critics point to the California high-speed rail line between Los Angeles and San Francisco. When it was first proposed in 2008, it was expected to cost $33 billion. But the California High-Speed Rail Authority now says it will be more than $230 billion. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Well, I have known our next guest since he was first elected to the Ottawa City Council way back in 2010. And he is still a city councillor in Ottawa. And he has been acclaimed as the next president of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. That happened just a few days ago at the organization's annual conference in Edmonton. Almost 2,000 municipalities, big and small, are members of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. They share the same issues, many of them. And to discuss some of those issues, I am pleased to be joined by the president of the FCM, Tim Tierney. Hi there.
Hi, Rob. Yeah, wow, what a trip down memory lane. As a matter of fact, I remember I'm part of the class of 2010 when our current mayor in Ottawa, Mark Sutcliffe, yourself, and Jeff Paulwin were announcing that I had won because nobody even told me I had won. And it was quite a celebration. So things come full circle sometimes, I tell you.
Yeah, and time flies. And look, we've had many conversations over the years, and you have always expressed a frustration that sometimes local councils stray from what they're supposed to be doing for their residents, maintaining roads, public transit, garbage, recycling, water, sewer, recreation centers, libraries, the core municipal services, Councillor. When you speak with your colleagues across the country, what are some of the challenges you're hearing about for municipalities to keep delivering those core city services?
It's infrastructure, bar none. You're quite correct. Back to basics. I think we're in a time. Look, we used to be potholes and light bulbs, like you say, but a lot of stuff gets downloaded to municipalities. It seems we're taking on more and more burden on a regular basis. But now we really, and I heard this all week in Edmonton, is infrastructure. The stuff, look, we're not looking for Taj Mahals and beautiful buildings. We're actually looking for the stuff that's under the road to help actually build more housing, to build communities. That's where the real focus is, as well as community safety and bail reform, something that FCM's been a strong advocate for. We're happy to hear that things are moving ahead in the Senate in regards to bail reform, but of course, community safety is a big factor in that. So during these times, I think we've all come together and said it's going to be a very tumultuous couple of years between, obviously, we have some trade and tariff issues, but we also have other opportunities where we want to see local investments at municipal levels to ensure that we can keep going ahead. Because, again, Rob, and you know this more than anyone, no one can tell me how much they pay in federal taxes or provincial taxes, but they'll tell you to the penny how much they pay in municipal taxes.
Well, yes. Yeah, that's for sure. You just, as mentioned, had your annual meeting in Edmonton. A major focus for the big city mayors is to make sure there's a plan for the downtowns of Canada's biggest cities. What are the biggest issues that you're hearing about in our downtown cores, and what does FCM want to see?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that a lot of our downtowns throughout the country are having some challenges, whether it's community safety or just people actually going back to the downtowns. The revitalization, making them focal points is a part of it. So making sure that we have the appropriate amount of infrastructure funding. Obviously, there's a tie-in with transit and all the other great things to be able to revitalize downtown. So it's been a challenge over the last few years, and we see obviously the epidemic of drugs has been a big issue. So of course, wraparound supports and making sure that we're able to provide the correct help, but at the same time provide that element of safety and cleanliness in downtown areas and bring back vibrancy to our downtown areas.
On the homelessness, drug addiction issue, when you speak with upper levels of government, I mean, how committed are they, in your opinion, to helping municipalities get a handle on that situation?
Yeah,
Councillor
and
Tierney?
this is where a lot of the discussions come into play, because of course, as municipal officials, the front door, the people that know the most, it's one thing if we had the money coming direct to us, but a lot of the stuff is going through provinces as well, through transfer payments to be, I'll say, doled out to municipalities that are actually doing a lot of the great work. So we want to make sure we're at the table for those discussions. If we, and we're not opposed to working with the provinces, we continually have great conversation on a regular basis, but how that gets applied and comes back to municipalities, specifically for things like addiction and housing and homelessness. Those are key parts of what we deal with on a regular basis. We're the front door. We're the people who actually do a lot of the heavy lifting. So we want to make sure it trickles down to us in a timely fashion. That's the other conversation we had a lot about this week, Rob, is we've had a lot of discussion over the last year, but now let's start digging, let's start transferring money, let's start making things happen. And that was a key message I certainly picked up on.
Yeah, it comes back to that old line: the federal government has all the money, the province has all the power, and the municipalities have all the problems. You need more money and more power, I think.
Yeah, well, I got a little more power this week thanks to the 3,000 people that showed up at the convention. As you mentioned, it's over 2,200 municipalities. First time in 84 years, somebody from Ottawa. And the good news, Rob, is guess what? Everyone is in Ottawa doing their business, so they're going to get tired of me. And if they don't start saying, oh, God, here comes Tim again, I haven't done my job. So I think, I'm pretty ruthless and toothless when it comes to that. I like to press and make sure we're doing the work of municipalities, including the rurals. That's a big factor in what I'm bringing forward.
Okay. Well, speaking of that, it takes something extraordinary to get a farmer to either hop in a car or on a tractor and come to Parliament Hill, and that's happening right now. They're worried, Councillor, quite frankly, about Alto. I want to ask you about that when we come back. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
I'm here talking about municipal issues with the president of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, Ottawa City Councillor Tim Tierney. And today in your city, there is a farmers' protest on Parliament Hill. Farmers are busy. Farmers have better things to do than going to a protest. You and I know this. Then go to a protest on Parliament Hill. It's just getting underway. They're against the Alto plan for high-speed rail. I know some of the farmers who were there. So do you, Councillor. Mutual friends of ours. They say that this project could cut them off from their land. They're worried that their land might be expropriated. This high-speed rail line would serve Ottawa and other big cities across the country: Toronto, Montreal, Quebec City. What is the FCM's position on the Alto project?
Yeah, this has come up a couple of times now. FCM, we actually have to look at, if it benefits municipalities, obviously it's good for FCM, but we actually don't get into individual projects throughout the country for obvious reasons. I mean, we'd be focused on certain individual issues and areas. At the same time, I think there is recognition that, we hope that the federal government listens and the dialogue continues. But I know some of those farmers as well as you, Rob, and I can certainly understand their concern. Absolutely.
Okay. Your organization has created a task force to see what role there is for local government as the federal government ramps up spending on national defense. Where do you see opportunities for local governments to benefit from increases in spending on national defense?
Okay, this is a good one, Rob, and I'm very glad we've formed this task force. You think about how much money we're talking. We're talking 5%, right? So there's a lot of investments that will go into military, and that's not all weapons. There's a whole aspect of we got to look at building communities. We have CFB bases here around Ottawa. What's going to happen if we're ramping up on military spending? That's communities. That means the people, maybe the partner is staying back, they're raising families. So we got to really focus on that and building up a lot of those communities. So being part of that conversation, and the government seems quite engaged, our task force is very involved, gives me a lot of hope that we have an opportunity to access funds to be able to help build those communities. And I think there's a good synergy between FCM and what the government's position is on trying to build up our military forces. My thoughts on that. I think this is a good time to get it done. And we'll be at the table now, which is good.
Okay. Part of the hitting the NATO target of 5% now includes upgrades to housing for our military members. There's certainly a lot of that in your city. I think of the Uplands base, for example, but I believe also in your ward, there was the Rockcliffe base. What's been happening there?
Yeah, interesting. That is obviously being redeveloped for residential housing. So, of course, who would have thought the world would have pivoted more back towards military spending? Clearly, times have changed. So now we have to look for either newer areas or other areas if we're looking at creating those kind of communities. And that's what this is about across the country. There are many opportunities for that to happen, and we want to be part of that. A lot of those, the Rockcliffe base being so close to where I live, those old wartime housing, obviously we won't be doing the same thing anymore. But certainly FCM being part of that discussion, I think is critical.
Okay. It'll be interesting now that you're in this position. I hope to pick your brain during your term, Councillor Tierney. Thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you very much, Rob. Really appreciate the time.
Yeah, that's Tim Tierney, President, Federation Canadian Municipalities. He actually ducked out of an Ottawa City Council meeting to join us today. I thank him for doing so. More on federal politics. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the big energy conference that's underway in Calgary and issues around pipelines as well. That's just ahead on News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
With our Wednesday Newsday panel, Federal Politics Our Focus, with Susan Smith from Bluesky Strategy Group. Hi, Susan. How are you?
Good afternoon. Very well, thanks. Thank you for having me.
And Chris Day is with us as well from Burson Hill and Knowlton. How are you, Chris Day? Welcome back.
Very well, thanks, Rob. Thank you for having me, and nice to speak to both you and Susan.
Right. Big energy conference happening this week in Calgary. Tim Hodgson made a speech there yesterday and said Canada can be a supplier you need in a volatile world. That was his pitch to the crowd. And there are people from all over the world there. Now, given the political situation right now in Alberta with a non-binding referendum this fall on separation, Sue, how important do you think it is for a top prime minister, one of Prime Minister Carney's most trusted cabinet ministers, to be delivering a message like this?
I think it's very important because it's a message the Prime Minister has been delivering since before he was the Prime Minister, that Canada has what the world wants. And Mark Carney, Prime Minister Carney himself and his cabinet have been talking since the get-go about the need to properly tap into our energy resources and to get them to the markets that want and that need them, and how can we do it in a better way. And so Hodgson, who's definitely a Carney lieutenant, repeating that to a global conference is important. And the PM continues to deliver that message. He delivers it across the country. It's part of the messaging. It's part of every speech that he gives, and he will continue to give it. So it's not a new message, but it's at a time perhaps when people are perking up a little bit more in the Alberta market.
Well, yeah, a timely message, I would say. What do you think, Chris?
Well, I recall, us referring to Canada as a potential energy superpower back in the Harper government days, 2011 to 2013. I worked for a foreign minister, and we went around the world touting our capacity to, in fact, become an energy superpower. And yet, over the last decade, federal Liberals under Trudeau and others have done everything they could to gum up the regulatory regime that would make that possible. So not just on oil and gas, but on mines, on critical minerals, on nuclear, on more. So, I guess welcome to the party. Here's a hat and a noisemaker. Don't worry about taking off your shoes, and please stay a while. But, this is, I think, a government that is campaigned a little bit to the right and is now trying to govern from center. And I think they're challenged to try and get everyone on board with this message in a unified way. It's great to see ministers like Minister Hodgson out there towing that line, but it is new language for the Liberals, and it's language that not everyone in the caucus is entirely comfortable with. Okay. Any response there, Sue, or should we move along? Or?
I don't think Minister Hodgson's towing a line at all. I think it's something he believes, and it's the policy of the party, and it's the policy of the Carney government. Never in a big tent do you have everybody who sings from the same song sheet. We know that. Mr. Poilievre knows that. People have left his party as a result of that. And of course, there are people who may not be 100% comfortable on that from the left-wing side or more of the left side of the Liberal Party. But the Liberal Party is always is a centrist party. It's a party that under Mark Carney definitely understands that business, natural resources, building, manufacturing, these are important things that are part of the engine to grow the Canadian economy, especially in the uncertainty in global markets and with what's going on in the U.S. on an ongoing basis. So I think this is the right government for the right day and the right time, and they're delivering the message and actioning it because we know these things can't be stood up overnight. It was difficult for Mr. Harper's government to get a pipeline built. Mr. Trudeau's government got a pipeline built, and Mr. Carney's government, through the Major Projects Office, is trying to get pipelines actioned and approved and shovels in the ground in as soon as 2 years. Definitely it took too long before that. So I think this is a steady drumbeat of a message as opposed to a tuba blast, like Mr. Poilievre had last week in Calgary, or this week in Calgary, and expect to hear that message on a continual basis from...
Okay, well, on that, I wanted to ask Chris this. Let me ask Chris this. That's a nice segue there. Should Prime Minister Mark Carney go to Calgary and make the same kind of pro-Canada speech that Pierre Poilievre just gave? What do you think, Chris?
Well, the Prime Minister has a number of needles to thread, and he needs to show, not tell. If conversations and speeches and quotes and press releases were barrels of oil and things that we could sell on the world stage, we would be rich. We'd have a sovereign wealth fund that wasn't paid for with debt, but by private money, and Canadians would all be in a much, much better financial position. So, yes, but he needs to show and not just say. Pro-Canada, yes. Provincial and federal leaders should be making a positive case for a strong Alberta within a united Canada. But many Albertans will hear any federal Liberal talking about the importance of their resource sector after the last decade with a very, very cynical ear and jaundiced eye. And it really does come down to needing action and not just words.
Okay. I mean, same question. Should the Prime Minister give the same kind of speech that Pierre Poilievre just gave? Sue, what do you think?
This is what I've been. Well, You know, yes, he's been giving that
Sorry.
speech, Rob. He will continue to give that speech for sure. Prime Minister will go out. I expect during Stampede you'll hear a version of that. But as I said, that's the difference between a drumbeat and a tuba blast. Poilievre was walking around for the longest time telling everybody that Canada was broken. Now he wants to be Captain Canada. We need everybody in the direction of Canada, but it seems to be a new concept for Mr. Poilievre, and it is not a new concept for Mr. Carney, and he'll continue to promote the country in every speech he gives.
Okay. When we come back, just sticking with this Calgary Energy Conference, not encouraging words from the CEO of one of the biggest oil and gas companies in the country, who said a pipeline to the West Coast is unfinanceable. Talk about that when we come back. This is News Radio.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
Here with Susan Smith from Bluesky Strategy Group and Chris Day from Burson, Hill and Knowlton, talking politics on a Wednesday. The CEO of Cenovus, one of the largest oil and gas companies in Canada, told this same Calgary Energy Conference that a proposed pipeline from Alberta to British Columbia cannot be financed by the private sector. It is unfinanceable because of the current regulatory regime. John McKenzie, Reuters reports, said Canada's industrial carbon pricing system makes Canadian oil uncompetitive and inhibits the production growth required to fill the proposed pipeline. What's your reaction to that, Chris Day?
I mean, there's no doubt that the regulations and legislation as they are right now are more hindrance than help when it comes to getting our resources to market. Private industry, the provinces, civil society, energy analysts, economic observers, and others have been very, very clear and almost unanimous that the changes we have seen in this country over the last decade have been bad for business, bad for jobs, and bad for the economy. There's a reason that people in the industry refer to Bill C-69 as the No More Pipelines bill. And there are other pieces of legislation, other regulations, other rules, other red tape that have been put in place that prevent us from getting our resources to market. So unless the government moves meaningfully on those things, the view of the industry, as expressed most recently by the CEO of Cenovus, is sadly the reality of business.
I mean, the two things that he spoke to specifically, Sue, the Pathways project, that's the big carbon capture and storage project, which Mr. Carney has said no pathways, no pipeline, and the industrial carbon tax. Now, I will say the Premier of Alberta is fresh from signing another agreement with the Prime Minister that is less stringent when it comes to the industrial carbon tax than it was during Mr. Trudeau's time as Prime Minister. But given what we're hearing from the Cenovus CEO, Mr. McKenzie, I mean, is there any chance that the Liberal government would rethink, say, Pathways or the industrial carbon tax? What's your take here?
I don't think there's going to be a rethink on the Pathways side, which is the carbon capture, utilization, and storage. This is developing oil and gas responsibly. So making sure that the emissions aren't bigger, larger, stronger, but still being able to get our natural resources out of the ground and to Canadians and to markets that we need. I have a press release open in front of me from the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, where they think the MOU that the Prime Minister signed with Danielle Smith are all positive steps towards rebuilding investor confidence in the energy industry. So you're always going to have people who are unhappy if they have to pay a little more to make something happen. But there is no question that the Carney government is supportive of a strong natural resources sector in this country. And whether it's critical minerals or the LNG pipeline twinning that's already been announced with First Nations in BC, to the Major Projects Office, where projects are going to be approved in a faster way. You can't have no regulatory process for pipelines or for major projects. You have to have some regulation, but by streamlining it so it's one approval, not two, that makes sense. And I think that's where Canadians are comfortable. And when it comes to investors, they like certainty, and where there's certainty, this is what the Carney government is working to do, is provide that kind of certainty. And then there are excellent programs. Like when you look at the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program, $10 billion so First Nations can become proponents in these kinds of projects. So there is a path forward to these kinds of projects. I think it involves making sure Canada's emissions are under control and are responsible, but at the same time recognizing that we have tremendous natural resources and there is an effective way for us to get them out of the ground and get them to market. If we can get Jeremy Hansen to the moon, we can get oil and gas out of the ground.
It's proving easier.
To do it in the right way.
I will say, let me just and I'm putting this is my emphasis. Cannot be financed by the private sector. Okay, cannot be financed by the private sector. What about the public sector? What if the government helped fund this pipeline to British Columbia? Do you think the Carney Liberals would be open to that? Would Canadians be open to that? What do you think, Chris Day? I mean, they've done it before.
We've seen this movie before because there was no private sector proponent left anymore to build a pipeline. And that pipeline that Susan referred to earlier was in fact funded by the federal government because they had put so many barriers in place that no private company wanted to finish the job. They moved in, and government, guess what? The cost exploded, and it finally got built way later than promised. So, if government gets involved and government starts to build, chances are it's going to cost everyone more. Whereas government can do best by getting out of the way where possible on these things and creating an environment where you don't have to, quote, rebuild investor confidence. Investors are confident that they want to build here. That is frankly what is entirely lacking right now.
Okay, well, let me ask Sue. If the private sector won't finance it, would the government be open to financing it? What do you think, Sue?
I think there will be private sector players that see the benefit in participating in the process. Maybe the government steps in the case of loan guarantees so that Indigenous partners can become equity players. Maybe there's tax credits and things like that. I don't see the government, and this is just my opinion, stepping in and funding the construction of another pipeline. That's not what the Carney government wants to do. They want to create scenarios where investors come in and they're out of the way. It happened a different way under the Trudeau government, but I think Chris just said a pipeline got built. And it got built maybe definitely in an expensive way. But I think there's a new and better way to do it. I don't see the government stepping in with direct dollars on that.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Alto, when we come back, Alto, high-speed rail, Quebec City to Toronto. Is that project in jeopardy? This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now you know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
With Chris Day from Burson, Hill and Knowlton, and Sue Smith from Bluesky Strategy Group. Anybody see any farm equipment downtown in Ottawa today? Any tractors? Any tractors on Wellington Street? I just looked at the Parliament Hill webcam. I mean, it's a rainy, cloudy day in Ottawa. Not the best day for a protest. But they appear to have a few hundred people there for the farmers' protest against the Alto project. They're concerned about what it means for them, what it means for their farms. Will their land be expropriated? Conservative and Bloc MPs are expected to make some speeches at this protest today. The front runner to be the next premier of Quebec, the leader of the PQ-PSPP, he says he's opposed to the project, would scrap it altogether, doesn't want anything to do with it. This is very much a Quebec-led protest, and I just wonder, without supporting Quebec, is this project in doubt, Sue Smith? What do you think, Susan?
Well, if the leader of the Parti Québécois became the premier of Quebec and he follows through on that, then I think that becomes an issue. But the Parti Québécois are not the government in Quebec. It's less likely that they will become. So I wouldn't count the project out yet. I understand it makes sense. Like, you can understand why farmers are upset if they think some of their land is going to be expropriated for a rail line to move people more quickly in the country. You can understand that, but people would be compensated. Change is a challenge, and I think that's what's happening as part of the consultative process. But the political grandstanding, unfortunately, is a shame. This is a big nation-building project. It's the eastern side of the country, no doubt. but it's a good, efficient way to move people, and it represents change. And sometimes change is tough for people.
Okay. What do you think, Chris?
So the leader of Bloc Quebec, he was rightly taken to task yesterday for having overblown and frankly, given false numbers for the total, and also given people hope that Quebec, if there is no project, there's no money going to Quebec. So that's something that was clarified, I think, for the leader of the Parti Québécois yesterday. What I think he's trying to tap into is a bit of this sense of Mirabel PTSD. And that's that big airport that was promised on the outskirts of Montreal that ultimately never happened. But they kept people, first off, it expropriated a whole bunch of land and forced people to move, and kept people on tenterhooks for literally generations, ultimately not to be built. And there's a real sense that, I think there's a need for clarity, a need for decisions, and a need for quick movement here on this project, like other major projects in this country, that if you need to get big projects moving and done. So whether it's high-speed rail, whether it's in energy infrastructure, whether it's military procurement, or whether it's the Billy Bishop Airport in downtown Toronto, like, you can't let these things fester and have people, fill in gaps that are part of any big project with misinformation. Misinformation has taken hold in this instance in a really regrettable way. Hopefully there's an opportunity to correct that along the way. And I certainly the folks on Parliament Hill have the right to their opinion, but I think this project is moving ahead, and hopefully in a fact-based discussion way.
Interesting. Okay. You are both more optimistic than I am. Thank you to the both of you. Sue, great to hear from you again. Thanks again. Bye-bye. From Blue Sky Strategy Group. And Chris Day from the Ottawa office of Burson, Hill, and Knowlton. They're both in Ottawa today. Talkback is coming up. Pipelines, rail lines, and social media. Let's talk about some stories in our news cycle with your help right after the news on News Radio.
It's time to talk back
on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. I want your take on some stories in our news cycle. Pipelines, rail lines, and social media. All in the news. Let's start out west with pipelines. There is an important energy conference happening this week in Calgary. The Global Energy Show. Yesterday was opening day. Wraps up tomorrow. The federal minister of energy was there yesterday, Mr. Hodgson, and said Canada's open for business. Open for business. We are the reliable supplier in troubled times. You can count on Canada. That was the message from Tim Hodgson. I mean, he is the Prime Minister's top person on this file. Oil, gas, mines, pipelines. He's the man. We're open for business, he says. We're open for business. But then at the same time, on the same day, at the same conference, a guy named John McKenzie, who is the CEO of Cenovus, which is one of the largest oil and gas companies in Canada, headquartered in Calgary, said the plan for another pipeline from Alberta to BC is not going to happen the way things stand right now. Unfinanceable. You see that in the headlines today. It's unfinanceable. This pipeline from Alberta to BC, unfinanceable. In other words, nobody is going to lend us the money to build this pipeline. And he said that's because of two things. Pathways Project, the big carbon capture and storage project, which he said doesn't make sense, and the industrial carbon tax. He says those two policies make another pipeline project to the West Coast uneconomic. So no bank, no lender is going to finance a project like that as long as those two things are in place. And we've heard it from Prime Minister Carney. He has basically said no pathways, no pipeline. And the Prime Minister insists and has an agreement with Alberta on the industrial carbon tax. He is wedded to the industrial carbon tax. What is your reaction to this news? Because this would not seem to bode well for this pipeline project. And think of the current political environment right now with a non-binding referendum on Alberta separation looming. What should happen here? What should happen here? There are a few options, I suppose. Just forget about another oil pipeline to the West Coast. Just forget about it. It's not happening. Forget anyone ever brought it up. The Liberals in Ottawa could scrap their demands for carbon capture and storage projects like Pathways. Forget the industrial carbon tax. That doesn't seem likely. Or, if the private sector won't finance it, what about the taxpayers? What if the government became the financier? And taxpayers pay the bill to build another pipeline from Alberta to BC, which the CEO of Imperial Oil said recently could cost $100 billion. Question: how open are you to the idea of taxpayers footing the bill for another pipeline from Alberta to BC? Government did that once. What would you think if it did it again? 1-833-668-2577. One story in the news today. That's a pretty big story, if you ask me. Another story happening in Ottawa right now, a protest. Farmers, they're mostly from Quebec and Ontario, have come to Parliament Hill. They're concerned about Alto. Liberal government's plans for high-speed rail between Quebec City and Toronto. They're worried about what it's going to mean for their farmland. Some of them had told our news reporters this rail line is going to cut right through their farms. Others are worried their land is going to be expropriated. So they've come to Parliament Hill to make their concerns known. Now, I get it. You know, listeners in Halifax, you're not going to be served by this train. If and when it ever begins running, it ends in Quebec City. Listeners in Calgary, you're never going to ride this train, not unless you find yourself in Toronto. And this Alto project really doesn't touch Kitchener because the entire route is on the other side of Toronto. It doesn't go west of Toronto. But you're all going to pay for it one way or another. You may never ride it, but you will pay for it. Right now, the estimate is anywhere from $60 to $90 billion to build this train. What's $30 billion either way? The numbers being thrown around by the critics is that's $8,000 a taxpayer. You know, what do you think about that if you're in Halifax, Kitchener, or Calgary? $8,000 of your money to build this train from Quebec City to Toronto. How do you feel about the government taking $8,000 of your money to build a high-speed rail network that will never serve you? Project has a lot of boosters. And you may think it's a great project. We're open to hearing all opinions here on Talkback. I've heard it said, it's about time we had high-speed rail. Look all over the world in the countries that have high-speed rail. This is electrified transportation as well. No emissions. Creates tens of thousands of jobs, good jobs, union jobs in the trades. And it will be convenient. Almost half the population of Canada lives near this line. Imagine getting on one of these trains in Toronto. You'd be in Montreal in 3 hours. The concern is it's a massive boondoggle in the making, maybe the biggest boondoggle in the history of the country. And even if you're not going to be served by it, you're certainly going to pay for it. You're already paying for it. Tens of millions of dollars a year are already being spent on this. Alto. Worth the money? A good project for Canada to pursue? Or a waste of money, a boondoggle in the making? Share your thoughts. And social media back in the news. News conference later today in Ottawa, 5 o'clock Eastern time. The Liberals are going to announce their plans to regulate social media, and it will include an age limit. We have debated this a few times already about whether or not this is a good idea, whether it's even feasible to ban children under the age of 16 from popular social media platforms. The government's going to give it a try. Do you think the government can really ban children under the age of 16 from accessing social media platforms? Or will children find a way around it? They've done this in Australia. They've brought in an age verification system for social media. One person has described this as trying to fence the ocean. In other words, it's just not going to work. And apparently it's not working in Australia. And this under 16 social media ban has been ineffective so far. Do you think it can be effective here? All stories in our news cycle these days. Let's start with those, see where the conversation takes us at 1-833-668-2577 on pipelines, rail lines, and social media bans. This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
And so it's pipelines, rail lines, and social media today on Talkback. Have your say on any of these stories that are in the news. We have the CEO of one of Canada's largest oil and gas companies, Cenovus, saying a pipeline from Alberta to BC is unfinanceable because of the need to have carbon capture and storage and an industrial carbon tax. Here's what I want to ask you. Okay, unfinanceable by the private sector, he says. But should the government step in? Maybe use taxpayers' money to build that pipeline. What do you think? Yes or no? Alto, high-speed rail project, rally in Ottawa today, protest by farmers. Critics are saying this project is going to cost every Canadian taxpayer about $8,000, given the current estimates. And that's whether people live anywhere near this rail line or not, whether they use it or not. But do you think high-speed rail between Quebec City and Toronto, is that a good project or a bad project for Canada? And the government later today, in about 4 hours from now, will announce a social media ban for children under the age of 16. But do you think it will be able to enforce that ban? Will it really be able to keep 16-year-olds off of social media? What do you think? Have your say. I mean, some hot issues here, folks. Have your say. Share your opinion. Give me your outlook. Brian is in central Alberta. Hello, Brian. First-time caller. Good to hear from you.
Yes, sir. First-time calling, and I really appreciate your showing your agnostic approach to these topics.
Okay. What story do you want to talk about?
The pipelines, the financing of the pipeline. I think there's a third option. There's actually a hybrid, and I think this is, in sitting down with some of the oil and gas leaders, it's probably the approach that they're actually asking for. And rather than being just polarized, public or private, full funding, what they're saying is the level of effort and the administrative burden to mitigate the political barriers and receive approvals from all the interested parties is really what's making it not attractive from a cost-benefit perspective. Now, if the government was to fund the project, they have to go through all those steps anyhow. So perhaps it's a hybrid of where the government comes in, helps mitigate those barriers that have nothing to do with the design, procure, build part of it, and then once the approval's in place, the private sector takes over the cost burden.
Okay, so when the CEO of Cenovus says it's an unfinanceable project and that the oil industry is uncompetitive because of these policies, what do you think about that? Because of having policies like the need to have carbon capture and storage or the need to have an industrial carbon tax, do you think that makes your energy sector uncompetitive and a pipeline project unfinanceable?
It certainly is an additional layer. Absolutely. You know, the administrative burden associated with all the carbon capture, as well as the physical assets that need to be designed and built to satisfy those requirements. But it's when you stack one upon the other layers of policies, all mutually exclusively matter to different Canadians in different ways. So they're all, substantive. But the thing is, regarding that statement of a pipeline being unfinanceable, I believe that was probably the part of the whole project that they were referring to is the cost to mitigate all of the stakeholder engagement and receive those approvals along with additionally these policies.
Right. So you hear, I appreciate that point of view. You hear the Prime Minister and the Premier of your province, they're very excited about the idea of another pipeline. The Premier is talking like there could be shovels in the ground in September of next year. You think that's likely?
Yeah,
Really?
History would say, as optimistic and enthusiastic as I would be to see that happen, right now with the current policies in place and approvals, resistance, that's fairly aggressive timeline if we go based on history.
Okay, thank you for your call. Talk back, everyone. 1-833-668-2577. Pipelines, rail lines, social media. It's all in the news. We want your take on any or all of it today. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
News cycle that we're asking for your opinion on today deals with the coming social media ban for young people under 16. So this is what's going to happen. In Ottawa today, news reporters are going to go into a technical briefing. So you go into a technical briefing, all the top people from the various departments, whether that's the Heritage Department in this case, or might be the AI department, Evan Solomon's department. And the top people are going to be there. News reporters will be able to ask some questions. They just can't quote the bureaucrats that are in there. It's for background. So that's going to happen in a few hours. And then at 5 o'clock Eastern time, 3 o'clock in Calgary, 6 o'clock in Nova Scotia, the minister, Mark Miller, is going to have a news conference. And he's going to explain how the government proposes banning people under the age of 16 from using social media. Now, we have talked about this a few times here on Talkback. I wouldn't mind getting back into it again today. I am generally in favor of something like this, banning children from social media. But this, I'm not like everyone else. Whenever I read a news story about social media, I kind of play a game with myself, and I replace the word social media with cigarettes. It's just something I do because I view these social media companies as the same way I view big tobacco, because they very much have behaved the same way. They knew their products were harmful. They designed them to be addictive. They wanted to hook people, especially young people. And that's why now they're either losing lawsuits or they're settling lawsuits left, right, and center all over the place, all over the world, because they have behaved like cigarette companies. And we don't let children of that age buy cigarettes. We have an age restriction. We have age limits. And I would like to think we could have the same sort of age restrictions for social media because it's harmful. We know it's harmful. There's ample evidence now that says social media is bad for the health of young people. You know, this is not a 17-year-old going to the corner store trying to buy a pack of Export A or trying to sneak into the liquor store to buy some wine coolers. I get it. It's the digital world. It's more complicated. I understand this. So that's why I want to know today, and share your opinion, please. Do you think this could work? In all honesty, do you think it could? I would hope it could work. But what I'm reading about Australia and the Australian experience, it's not working. You know, the guy at the convenience store can kick the kid out of the store. Same with the liquor store. Get out of here, kid. Come back when you're older. It's just not that easy with social media. And one of the most interesting lines that I read in the news this morning was from some expert who said, it's not working in Australia because you're trying to fence in the ocean. And you can't fence in the ocean. It's impossible. And apparently in Australia, despite this ban, children under 16 are still using social media. The estimate is 3 out of 4 children under the age of 16 are still using social media. They've found workarounds. They're using the accounts of older friends, or they're using their parents' account with their parents' permission. They're using the accounts of older siblings. They're borrowing other people's IDs. They're switching to platforms that are not covered by the social media ban. Companies that effectively are social media, but they just don't call themselves social media companies, so they're not affected by the ban. You know, they need their fix. They need their social media fix. This is where their social lives are. So they have found ways around it. So do you think the same thing would happen here? will be with the children, saving the lives of children. But will it work? I was hopeful it would work. Now I'm having second thoughts. Because if it won't work, then the question is, why do it in the first place? What do you think? Do you think it'll work? Banning children under the age of 16 from social media? Do you think that is feasible, doable, workable, enforceable? 1-833-668-2577 to have your say on that issue today. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yes, it is. It is Talkback on News Radio in Nova Scotia, Southern Ontario, and Alberta. And it is a pleasure, it really is, to take your calls each and every day and I'd talk about current events with people all across the country and get varying opinions. I really have to say, however, I have noticed in the last few weeks a dramatic reduction in the number of people who want to discuss these issues on the radio, which is fine. We don't have to do this sort of format. We don't have to take your calls. We don't have to hear from our listeners, our loyal listeners, our loyal callers. That would be my preference. I do love hearing your opinions. We do put quite a bit of effort into presenting these issues to you each and every day, but we don't have to do this anymore. We can always do interviews. We can do panel discussions. We have reporters all across the country. We can bring reporters on. But this has always been sort of, I remember an old boss in talk radio used to call in radio the original social media. This is sort of a gathering place for people to kick around ideas and talk about current events and have discussions and debates and even the odd disagreement here and there. But unfortunately, just given the way things are, we're going to have to seriously rethink, perhaps, doing talkback unless there's a better response. We have thrown out any number of topics. I thought this would be a hot topic, for example, in Alberta, that you have the CEO of one of the largest energy companies in your province saying, unless the Carney government in Ottawa does something about its carbon policies, the idea of building a pipeline to the West Coast is just not going to happen. It's just not going to be on. There's no private financier who will ever bankroll this project. It's just not happening, which was a very different message than what was heard from the Minister of Energy when he was at the same energy conference in Calgary, where it's, we're open for business. We have everything that you need. We're open for business. Meantime, you have the government in Ottawa moving heaven and earth to advance this Alto high-speed rail project, even if it cuts farmers' fields in half, even if it means the expropriation of land. The estimate is $60 to $90 billion. Like, what's $30 billion? What's the $30 billion difference? $8,000 for every taxpayer. And the government is just moving full steam ahead with that, despite all of this uncertainty around cost, around timelines, about the future of people's private property. That's why there's a sizable protest happening on Parliament Hill right now. And yet there seems to be very little interest in that, or banning social media for children. I mean, how many teenagers do you know that are absolutely hooked and addicted to social media? What will their lives be like if they can't access social media until they turn to the age of 16? And there are lots of questions and lots of doubt that the government will even be able to enforce that ban. So these are all topics that are in the news. They're all topics that should generate some feedback, but unfortunately, I'm not sure what's happened. This is only in the last 2 or 3 weeks that this has happened. That the phone lines are empty. They have dried up. And if this continues, we'll just do other things. We'll do other sorts of news coverage. And that would be sad because there aren't very many radio stations now that even do this kind of radio. It's kind of unique, and I feel blessed to do it every day. So there's the number, 1-833-668-2577. If nobody calls, I don't know, we'll play some country or western music or something, or some polka music. Sophie is in Cochrane. Thank you for calling, Sophie. Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, Rob.
Yeah, hi, Stephanie.
Actually, really, can you hear me?
I hear you just fine, Stephanie. Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm actually really bothered to hear you say that. First of all, I'm just wondering if there's another platform you could do in addition to calls, like maybe social media use. I know we're talking about social media for youth right now, but for the adults that listen to your show, maybe branching out into that being an option for people to call in might be another usable.
Well, maybe
platform.
people are newsed out. The news can be depressing. Maybe they don't want to comment on stories. They've heard these stories so many times. People feel powerless, whatever it might be. But
True. And if
people don't call, that means I have to talk, and I don't want to talk for 2 hours straight. I
hear you. But on today's subject, this is one as a parent of an 11-year-old that really does bother me. It's hard to keep her off of her devices. I mean, she has a phone for in case of emergencies, but it's a smartphone, so it has access to apps and the internet and all those kinds of things. And something that I don't understand, and this could be done globally, why the internet or why these companies aren't required by government to do this is to have kids actually have to upload, let's say, a school ID. And if they're under the age of 16, they also require a parent to upload a copy of their driver's license or a passport photo. There's a lot of organizations out there already, anything that uses financial transactions, things like that, where safety is a consideration, and they have to verify who you are, where that is a requirement. Whether you like it or not, you can choose to be comfortable with it or not. That's fine. That's your choice at that point. But then it actually provides a safeguard where it's a little bit harder to borrow a friend's ID, up to a point anyway. And after that, I mean, ultimately, there's also the point where if parents are going to let their kids use it, can't stop that. It's, personally, in my opinion, it's stupid to, allow a kid free access. I mean, at least, at the very least, put parental controls on your kid's phone and look at your kid's phone. Look at their text messages periodically. Let them know, hey, from time to time, I'm going to be checking these things just so you know, because you are underage. You're not mentally and emotionally responsible or mature enough to be able to manage the impacts of these things. I mean, there's adults that can't, understandably, when you get overloaded to a point, it does become an addiction. You don't even realize it. So I think when it comes to youth, right? I think when it comes to youth, I think it's important that these are the kind of safeguards. It's a double safeguard. Youth has to have some way of proving, whether it's a parent that provides it or not. As how that works is kind of, you got to find a workaround with that. I'm sure kids will. But again, if they're under a certain age and they are having a legitimate account, I think those things need to be backed up with parental support requiring the uploading of proof of, that's my parent. I think.
Do you think it's enforceable? Do you think it's enforceable? Because the Australian experience is it's not working. It's not working to the degree they hoped it would.
I don't think the Australian experience is doing something to the extent of where they're requiring, proof of identification, proof of age. So it's pretty easy to still get around that. But if you're requiring the upload of proof of age, proof of, and then back it up with also requiring the proof of parent and their age, authorizing the account to be opened, then I think that's going to provide a lot more safeguard than just saying, oh, no, if you're under 16, we're not going to let you have this account.
All right. Thank you for your call. I really mean that. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Let's go to Victor is in Nova Scotia. He's a first-time caller. Hi, Victor.
Hello, Robert. How are you?
Yes, I'm very good, Victor. Thank you. What story do you want to talk about, Victor?
Yeah, I want to talk about the pipelines. And I'm born and raised Nova Scotia, but I've never been out. Well, no, I've been to Calgary once, way back. But I feel their pain for these pipelines.
You do, Okay.
Well, it's just, I feel it for all of Canada. We should have had these things running 40 years ago, never mind 10 years of Trudeau number 2. It's just like we could have been the Saudi Arabia of the North, but they just refuse. It's all political. They're conservatives in Alberta, liberals in Ottawa, and they've been cutting off Canada's nose to spite the face. It's just so sad, you know?
It's just, I just wonder. Yes. Sorry, Victor. Continue, please.
No, I just want to say, like, the stats and the proof is Canada is only 1.5% of the world emission problem. Like, we're responsible for 1.5% of climate change. Why?
Well, 1.5% of global emissions. Yeah, 1.5% of global emissions. Yeah, you're right there. Yeah.
And that's their whole argument. So why are they treating Canada as if we're 98.5% of the problem? You know, it just doesn't make sense. It's all political and very frustrating.
Yeah, it just seems to me, why do we have these policies? You think about our major competitors, carbon capture and storage. Where else are they doing that? Oh, nowhere. Right? So why are we hamstringing our own industry with that? Industrial carbon tax. Okay, there are probably other countries that have industrial carbon taxes. But our major competitors in the oil industry, does the United States have an industrial carbon tax? No, it doesn't. Right. And I find this comment, this is in the Financial Post today. This is the CEO of Cenovus, big energy company in Canada. At this very important conference in Calgary, he says, none of our customers have ever suggested or even asked about the carbon intensity of our crude. You hear this all the time. Oh, buyers only want to have low carbon crude oil, and it has to be clean. And he says, well, nobody's ever asked us that. Like, what is the carbon intensity of your crude? It's stuff and nonsense, he says. And it's shutting in our industry.
Absolutely. But don't forget, when these green people, the color of money is green too. All of this billions of dollars for the green energy stuff, it goes somewhere. Like, follow the money.
Sure does. Yeah. Okay, Victor. Thank you.
On the other end of, okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Victor. I gotta get going here. Let's go to Alan. He's in Calgary. Hi, Alan.
How you doing, Rob?
Yeah, good, Alan. Thank you. Yeah. What story do you want to talk about there, Alan? Yeah.
Well, I'll touch on two things. One, that nobody wants to talk to you anymore. I think it's just because we're all working too much.
Maybe.
When I listen to your show, I'm listening to the Saturday night broadcast, so I don't think you guys are actually live at that point, so you can't call in. But, we like talking to you. I like hearing the back and forth for what it's worth. But I wanted to touch
Well, thank you for that. Let's not have a pity party here for Rob, but it's just been noticeable over the last few weeks. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. Maybe I just have to be better at my job. All right, let's get into it here. We're only got about 90 seconds, so.
Yeah, well, either way, the social media stuff, I don't think it's enforceable. I don't think.
Okay.
I think the genie's out of the bottle on that one, and I think the trick, honestly, is building more resilient kids and a little bit better parenting, teaching your kids to make good decisions, because they're going to forge IDs. There's no way around it. Like, who's going to enforce every child under 16 not using social media, right? The genie's out of the bottle.
Well, they say they're going to have a regulator, a social media regulator, to make sure that the social media companies are complying with the social media ban.
We have so many regulators in this country that can't do their job to begin with. Now we're going to have a regulator for social media for how many millions of kids? Right?
Yeah, how many millions of kids, how many millions of accounts in Canada?
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of like, I don't know. That's
well. Do you think it's kind of like this line that I read this morning in one of the newsletters? It's trying to fence in the ocean. It's like trying to fence in the ocean.
Yeah, 100%. It's a wasted effort, right?
It's a wasted effort. Yeah.
I think it's the government trying to make a show of things, trying to appear that they're doing stuff. It's going to be much ado about nothing. They can't fix this. Right? There was a lady talking earlier about ID and stuff like that. Well, I used to buy booze with fake ID. How easy is it going to be to fake a school ID to give to Google? Right?
Yeah, it's very interesting. You know, I was so optimistic that we would have the capability to do this, but the more I'm reading about it, because I really do think it's harmful for children. I think that's evident now. I thank you for your call today, but the more I'm reading about it, it seems to have been totally ineffective in Australia, which was the kind of the pioneer on this. Talk back. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
To Scott in southwestern Ontario today. Hello, Scott. What do you want to talk about, Scott? What story do you have on your mind here?
Rob, how are you today? Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, very good, Scott. Yeah, my pleasure.
I heard that you had trouble with people calling in, so I listen to your show a lot. I don't call in a lot, but I do like to call in. And I just, you can hear me out, and I could be totally wrong, Rob, on this, but I think maybe talking about the federal government all the time, and Mark Carney all the time. Mark Carney is like the most popular prime minister we've had in quite some time. I think polling says, not me, but polling. And I think if the show is negative about the federal government and what they're doing, and Mark Carney and what he's doing and what he's not doing, I mean, this is a guy who's.
Well, I'm just reporting on what is in the news and asking people for their responses to it. I mean, if you have the Minister of Energy standing up and saying, we're open for business, and then the CEO of one of the biggest oil and gas companies says, well, no, we're actually not open for business because of your government's policies, that's a story.
But Rob, come on. That CEO is leveraging. You don't think he's leveraging in the press to get something? I mean, people knew. I mean, we only had an election a year ago. People knew what the policies were of the Liberal government. If they were dead against it, if Canadians were dead against it, I mean, the Liberals wouldn't be in power. Pierre Poilievre would be prime minister right now, but he's not. And so I think when I hear a CEO say that, yeah, okay, sure, that's what's he going to say? We love these conditions that we're going to. No, he's not going to say that. So they're going to leverage it. So I don't. Yeah. I take that.
And the story on social media, the story about the social media ban, I don't even view that as a partisan story. Is that a partisan story? No. That's about whether any government. Because the UK is going to announce a similar policy in the coming days. It'll probably talk about it at the G7 meeting that Mr. Carney is going to in France in just a few days. As I say, Australia has already done this. There are calls for the EU to do this. But based on how things are going in Australia, is something like that enforceable, or is it totally unworkable? Because a ban that doesn't work isn't worth anything.
I have two adult children now, Rob, but because I was that age. But when I was 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, I mean, back in our day, parents didn't even know where we were or what we were doing. I mean, it's really, you cannot. I don't think it's enforceable. I don't think that's the way. One of your earlier callers said it comes down to parenting, and it comes down to not understanding what your kids are doing, which I think goes on because it didn't go on when I was growing up, and I'm sure it just didn't. But it is now, and I think that's the solution. I don't think a government can control that. I really don't.
All right, thank you. Good to hear from you. That's hour number 1 of Talkback. Hour number 2 after the latest breaking news on News Radio.
It's time to talk back
on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Pipelines, rail lines, social media. Topics all in the news cycle, all in the news. Would love your opinions on them. Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. We have the CEO of one of Canada's largest oil and gas companies saying a pipeline from Alberta to BC is unfinanceable. In other words, nobody would lend an energy company in Canada money to build that pipeline. Why? Carbon policies from the government in Ottawa. Reaction to that. He's unfinanceable from the private sector. Well, the government has spent money to build pipelines before. What if the government, i.e. taxpayers, stepped in and built that pipeline? Second pipeline from Alberta to BC. Where would you stand on that? Alto, high-speed rail project. It is pouring rain in Ottawa today. Pouring rain. Not the best day for a protest. I've attended a few protests in my day, and I know some of the farmers who were at the protest in Ottawa today. What are they protesting? Alto, the high-speed rail project. It's going to cut up their farmland. They're worried their farms might be expropriated. The projections are all over the place for the cost of this project, high-speed rail between Quebec City and Toronto, 60 billion, 90 billion. Some people think it'll be easily double that by the time it's finished, sometime in the mid-2040s. But the government insists this is a nation-building project for Canada. It's a good project for Canada. Do you think it's a good project for Canada? Because your money is helping to build it. And can you really enforce a ban that keeps teenagers off of social media, that keeps children off of social media, children under the age of 16? The government is going to announce that today, but will the government really be able to enforce it? What's your opinion? These are some stories in the news, and we'd love your take on them. Let's start hour number 2 with a first-time caller in Calgary, Dakota. Hello, Dakota.
Hi there. Just wanted to say I'm
Dakota.
a huge fan of your show. I listen to it every day at work, but I never really have a chance to call in except for today, and I heard what you were saying, so I thought I might as well make use of my time and call in and support you. I just want to touch on the social media aspect. I think it is incredibly important that we move forward with that ban, and not because that it's going to be 100% effective. Like, there's lots of bans that we have, whether it's an age ban on or limit on cigarettes or alcohol or using a tanning bed, like you name it. There are bans in place there, and sure, there are people that still smoke underage, drink underage, etc. That, this, and the other. But the fact of the matter is, we make it more difficult because we know that it's not good, and we know that we're doing what's right. I would like to think that that's the way we do it, so that they don't have access to these things when they are not of age. And when it comes to social media, I really don't think that we can put it on, making kids more resilient. Their frontal lobe is not developed until they are 25 years old. They can't make a sane decision. Even, I think back to when I was 18, which wasn't too long ago. I'm only 30 now. And I was very mature, I was very confident, and I made good choices. But I look back to a lot of things that I thought or did then, and I think, man, what the heck are you talking about? I just didn't know any better, and there was no way to know better. My brain wasn't fully developed. And so I really do think that it is in the best interest of the future to put some sort of limit on social media, especially with the rise of AI. And I really don't think people are taking that as seriously as they should too, on a national level. And when it comes to social media, I just think that if we don't do anything, then we are going to pay for it dearly.
Okay. There is this idea out there that the mere idea of banning it sends a message. It sends a message to the teenagers, sends a message to more importantly, to the parents of the teenagers. Hey, this is serious stuff. There are harms associated with using that. And maybe just banning it will be effective to a certain extent, even if, to your point, it's not 100% enforceable. What do you think of that idea?
Yeah, and I think even too, even after the banning point, I know my mom, love her to death, but she is actually addicted to her phone and to social media. Even myself, I have an app on my phone to try to make my phone more of a quote-unquote dumb phone, so it's less desirable to use it. And it comes down to that dependency. I don't want to go or say as far as addiction, even though I feel like it is an addiction. But in terms of enforcing, I don't know. I know some people have issues with the privacy aspect of it when it comes to having to upload your identification. But even after you're past that age where you'd be banned, I still think social media isn't good for people over the age of 16. So I do agree to an extent that we have let the genie out of the bottle. But I do think maybe it would help a little, maybe. But it's hard to say. We don't know the effects of long-term social media use. It's only been, I think I was in grade 12 when Snapchat came out, and then Instagram was a couple years before. So I kind of missed the bigness of it. It was just up and coming. It was used recreationally, but now that's where people get celebrity status from.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Great to hear from you today. Thank you for the call. Why don't we stop here? We're just getting started with Talkback. Frank in Surrey, Jordan in Halifax, Dexter Eric, you can all hang on the line. Be patient. Get right to you. This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Hour number 2 of Talkback. Right back to the phones. Frank in Surrey is on the line. Hello, Frank.
Hello, Rob.
Yeah, good to hear from you, Frank. How are things in Surrey?
They're doing not too bad.
That's good.
What
do you want to talk about?
Your topics you have, there's 2 of them I'd like to address briefly. On the pipeline, we've had a lot of discussion in BC. Of course, the Premier's dead set against the pipeline, et cetera, et cetera. I think the pipeline can go ahead. I think your guy in Calgary is doing a little negotiating in public, as one of your other callers said, the
All right.
CEO. But I do think what will happen is the pipeline is not going to go to the North Coast. It's going to come to our area in the Fraser Valley, Lower Mainland. And I think the terminal will end up being at Roberts Bank, which is outside Vancouver Harbor and has been expanded for several different types of shipping. And I think it'll probably be financed by the private sector eventually. That's my thought.
Okay, that's very optimistic compared to what he's saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's negotiating in public, like your caller said.
I mean, he is saying even he's saying the MO, even the very existence of an MOU between Ottawa and Alberta proves that the energy industry in Canada is out of step and uncompetitive.
Yeah, well, he can say that, and people are always negotiating in public, whether they're politicians or CEOs. So, but that's the way I see it. I'd like to comment on the high-speed rail.
High-speed rail, yeah.
I've been
It's
reading.
not going anywhere near Surrey.
No, it certainly isn't, and that's one of the points I want to make. We have virtually no passenger rail in Western Canada. We have the Canadian, which goes from Vancouver to Toronto twice a week, and is always delayed. We have the train that goes to Churchill from Winnipeg, and we have a train from Jasper to Prince Rupert. There's no trains in the province of Alberta between Calgary and Edmonton. And in my opinion, the Alto project should be scrapped or reduced, and some of that money should go to build high-speed rail between Calgary and Edmonton, where there's clearly a case for lots of that. And I think that would be a much better use of money than building another rail line which duplicates existing via rail service, which on the corridor is actually quite good. I have traveled on it. I am a rail enthusiast. I think it's a pretty good service, and I don't really see why a new high-speed rail has to be built.
All right. Thank you very much. Good to hear from you in Surrey. Thank you, Frank. Up next, Eric is in Halifax. Hello, Eric.
Hey, Rob. Well, first of all, don't you guys ever leave. I'll be lost without you. Now,
that's very kind of you.
Well, I'm telling you, man, I mean, if it wasn't for you people, we wouldn't know what was going on in the world. You bring us up to date on what's going on all over the world as we know it. We can't talk to our politicians because they usually say, well, I'm too busy, or leave a message. The receptionist, him or her, they can't tell you nothing. So we have to get our information from some source, and it's got to be talk radio. Don't be scared to get on the radio and say what you have to say, because if you don't say it, you're going to be going around going, who am I going to talk to? Who am I going to talk to? Well, talk to the radio. And as far as the high-speed train goes,
yes,
I personally have taken a lot of trains from Cindy and Halifax, and I enjoy the train ride from Toronto to Montreal. I find it very, very relaxing. I meet a lot of nice people, and I'm in no hurry to get to Montreal. I mean, it takes me about 30 to 28 hours to get from St. Catharines, when I used to live in St. Catharines, Ontario, and I enjoyed the train ride. And I mean, we don't have to go up with the other countries. I mean, it doesn't matter what the other countries do. That's their business. We're a nice little country. Don't try to change something that can't, that you can't. How do you want to say it? That you can't maneuver around. As far as the kids go, you're not going to tell the kids what to do. The kids are going to do what they want to do. They've been doing it now for years and years and years. I mean, God almighty, they're flogging a dead horse when they go to say that they're going to try to stop the kids from social. The kids, that's all they know. If they didn't walk around with a cell phone in their back pocket,
Yeah.
they feel
So
like
you don't
they
think
were
you could enforce it? You don't think you could enforce a ban to keep them off of it? Social media? You don't think that that's enforceable? No, you don't think so. Okay.
No, the kids won't listen to you. They might listen to you for a couple of days or whatever, a couple of weeks, but they're going to find a way to get onto the social. I mean, as long as they don't abuse it, they'll be all right, you know. And I mean, geez, I tell you, man, you guys, don't you guys talk shows and all that?
All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's not a pity party here, Eric. Thank you, though, for your kind words. I appreciate it. But let's take one more here. Dick is in Calgary. Dick. Hi, Dick.
Hi, Rob. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, Dick. Thank you. Yeah. What do you want to talk about, Dick?
Thanks for taking my call. I just got to give you my radical answer about why maybe people aren't phoning in quite as much when you're talking about the high speed or about the pipeline. I personally feel like beat. Like there's nothing that we can do west here, and it goes on. It started like in 1958 with Pierre Trudeau, and it's been like that since. And it's not because we're greedy. We don't want this pipeline for us. It's for Canada. But the people east just don't seem to understand that.
Well, I just find this to be discouraging. Now, others are claiming, well, he's negotiating in public. He's trying to, leverage a better deal for his company, Cenovus, which, may be the case. But this is a major 3-day energy conference that is happening in Calgary. He had to know that this was going to be widely reported in the financial news media. It has been. I mean, all over the financial news media, you see this word unfinanceable. It's unfinanceable. As long as you're forcing us into trying to build a massive carbon capture and storage project, it's going to cost $30 billion. As long as you're imposing industrial carbon taxes that don't exist elsewhere in the world, you're making our industry uncompetitive. And that means no lender is going to give us any money to build a pipeline. The CEO of Imperial Oil just a couple of weeks ago said it would cost $100 billion. Like that's 3 times as much as the last taxpayer financed pipeline cost, for goodness sake. Thank you, though, for your call. I understand what you're saying, though. You feel beat down. Appreciate that. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
On pipelines, rail lines, and social media on Talkback today, some stories that have been in the news. Let's go to Matt is in Calgary. Matt is in Calgary. Thanks for calling, Matt.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, it goes, Matt. It's kind of wet here today. How is it there?
Well, we wet, but a lot less wet than it could be, so I can't complain too much.
That's good. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about? What stories do you want to comment on?
The social media ban is an entertaining one to me because as it is to sign up for social media, they have a minimum age in place. Kids can literally just lie and click a button and sign up for social media accounts. It's been the same way for as long as I've been around and had access to the internet. I'm only 32, but when I was, the ripe old age at 12 or 13, it was no different. So it's just comical that, a government ban is somehow going to change that when in reality it won't. And then there's the aspect of, you can sign up with an ID. Most Canadian teenagers, unless they have a driver's license, don't have ID until they're 18 anyways.
Right. So what kind of ID would you, I guess you could use a passport.
Potentially, but there's a large amount of Canadians as a whole that don't have passports because they don't feel the need to travel or whatever the case is.
I understand that.
And beyond that, it's, what is the check, right? You upload an ID. Is it a person individually going through, do they have access to, a database off of the driver's license number or ID number or whatever the case is to verify this person is who they say they are and the age they are, and it's not just photoshopped and it's just AI clicking a button that says, yeah, this person's good based on the date on the ID kind of thing, right? So at that point, does it turn into, these they have to hire these people with these access to these databases, whatever the case is, to verify it, or is it just an AI thing going through and something anybody can easily Photoshop and make their way onto? It's one of those things. If kids want to be on social media, they're going to be on social media like all of their friends are and always have been. It's just
you don't see any way to effectively enforce a ban for, say, a 15-year-old.
Realistically, there isn't a way to enforce it. Unfortunately, right? It comes down to parents ensuring their kids don't have unfiltered internet access and having to go from there. Unfortunately, right? There's no real way for the government or the police, who have, in my mind, real police work to worry about, comparatively to kids on Facebook.
Well, I gather, and we'll learn more. This is the announcement, I guess, about 2.5 hours away now. The plan is to have a regulator in Ottawa, and it will be that office's job to police the platforms and making sure that the platforms are complying with this ban.
I'll be impressed to see if it works.
Well, it's not working right now in Australia. 3 out of 4 children under the age of 16 who are supposed to be not allowed on these platforms are still on these platforms. They have found workarounds. So a ban that doesn't work, what good is that ban? This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
In the home stretch of our midweek Talk Back today, here on a Wednesday, pipelines, rail lines, social media, we have the CEO of one of Canada's largest oil and gas companies saying a pipeline from Alberta to BC is, in his words, unfinanceable. Unfinanceable. Nobody would ever lend us the money to do it. Because of the requirements imposed by the Carney government in Ottawa, you must have carbon capture and storage. You must have an industrial carbon tax. What's your reaction to that? Now, he's saying unfinanceable. The private sector wouldn't finance it. What if the government financed it? If the private sector won't finance it, the government has built a pipeline from Alberta to BC before. What do you think of that idea? It's also a protest in Ottawa today. It's about the Alto high-speed rail project that critics say will cost every Canadian taxpayer, whether you live anywhere near it or not, it's going to cost you at least, preliminary estimates, $8,000. Whether you live near the rail line, whether you use it at any time in your life. But there's a lot of good to see, say the proponents in the Alto project, tens of thousands of good jobs. The convenience. This would serve almost half the Canadian population. Bullet trains. So what do you think? Good project, bad project? Based on what you know about it, Alto. Quebec City to Toronto. And in about 2.5 hours from now, we will see what the government has planned for social media. We know it's planning to ban access to children under the age of 16 to social media platforms. There may be exemptions for social media platforms if they can convince the government that our platforms are safe. But a ban, is it enforceable, that ban? Is that even possible to do? To keep a 14, 15-year-old off of social media? 1-833-668-2577. I think we have 4 lines available. Let's go to Jim is in Calgary today. Hi, Jim.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, Jim. Good to hear from you, Jim.
Just a quick thought on the social media. If parents were to give younger children phones that only could make phone calls and receive texts, that would be a start to controlling it.
Okay. Yeah. So you think it's more up to the parents, right? It's the parents' responsibility?
I would guess so, yes.
Yes. Yeah. Do you think it's even possible for the government to, say, keep a 14 or 15-year-old, let alone all the 14 and 15-year-olds in Canada, off of social media? Do you think that's a kind of ban that could be enforced?
I don't think so, no.
To any great degree?
I can't see how. Anyway, that's
You
all
can't
I
see
wanted
how.
to say. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your opinion on that. You know, a ban that isn't effective is a bad law. And as I say, this will be wrapped up and coached in the language of we're doing this to protect children. We are saving the lives of children. And if it was an effective ban, that would be all well and good. Who doesn't want to protect children from potential harm or even save the lives of children who may be in harm's way? Of course, everybody wants to do that. But is it feasible? Is it possible to do this? Because they have done this in Australia and it has proven to be quite a challenge. The estimate is in that country, which is kind of leading the way on this. We do expect the UK to do this, but the experience so far in Australia is that 3 out of 4 children under the age of 16 are still using those social media platforms. As I say, they have found workarounds through the age verification systems, whether it's using the accounts of older friends, using their parents' accounts, their siblings' accounts, borrowing people's IDs. There are social media platforms that don't call themselves social media companies, so they're not covered by the ban. So teenage traffic has migrated to those other platforms as well that are not covered by the ban, where they're doing all of the same things that they would do on some of the other platforms. So it is proven to be a challenge. So prohibition that doesn't work is a bad policy. It's a bad law. And this is why I actually agreed with the ending of the prohibition of marijuana in this country, because you had, the estimate was 4 to 5 million Canadians who were breaking the law on a regular basis. Not being able to buy marijuana and smoke marijuana just had no meaning to them. So if you had 4 or 5 million people breaking the law, well, what good is the prohibition? I almost view this the same way, even though I have no love lost at all for these social media companies. And I really do wish that a ban was enforceable. But maybe, as some of the callers have suggested, maybe that ban, it begins at home. And it is the parents' responsibility. And it's pie in the sky thinking to think that some government social media regulator in an office with a team of bureaucrats in Ottawa is somehow going to be able to manage these social media platforms and make sure teenagers are not accessing them. That's one of the topics that is in the mix today on Talkback at 1-833-668-2577, but also Alto, also pipelines. And more of your calls just ahead. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Pipelines, rail lines, social media bans. What do you want to talk about today? Let's go to Tony in Calgary. Hello, Tony.
Hey, hi, Rob.
Hi, Tony. Yeah, good to hear from you, Tony.
The pipelines, first of all. And, it's about time that somebody in the business sector actually, called a spade, because all we've heard is politicians saying this is almost a done deal. So I'm glad the CEO from Cenovus, called them out on it. I mean, Carney, he's just using this lever about the pathway project and carbon tax so he can meet the green agenda while still looking like he's pro-business. I mean, it's laughable.
Yeah, he calls it unfinanceable. Now, some people have said, well, that's an oil and gas CEO, and he's just negotiating. He's looking for leverage. How do you see it?
Well, we've got history to prove the hurdles thrown up in front of the oil companies in several major projects where companies either took a bath on the project and had to walk away from it, or just gave up. So I don't think he's, sugarcoating anything. He's just saying, Canada right now, we are uncompetitive because of the regulatory regime that we're under. And as soon as the Strait of Hormuz opens up, all those countries that say they really want our energy, they're going to go to the cheapest energy supplier, and it's not going to be Canada.
Okay, yeah, very interesting. Thank you, Tony, for your call. Tim is up next. First-time caller, Tim. Hi, Tim.
Hey, how you doing? Can you hear me okay? I'm on my truck phone.
Yeah, I hear you just fine, Tim. What story do you want to talk about,
I want to
Tim?
make a few comments about the industrial carbon tax and the carbon capture.
Yeah.
I'm from Alberta.
Yeah.
I'm pretty familiar with it. What a lot of people in Canada don't understand is that when you add cost to business, it actually makes you make less profit. So if one of these large companies can make more money just across the border, they're going to go to the highest gross profit margin region. They're not going to sit here and try to meet all the rules and regulations. And the net zero that's happened in our basically Western society has been devastating for so many European economies. And Mark Carney is bringing that same theology right here to our country, and it's a failure. We have to let it go.
Yeah, he says it's unfinanceable. No bank would ever lend a pipeline company the money to build the pipeline. And he says that's because of the industrial carbon tax pathways project, the huge carbon capture and storage project. $30 billion is the estimated cost right now for that. It probably costs more. But it's in stark contrast, I'd like your take on this. I mean, Premier Smith signed this MOU with Ottawa and agreed, like, we'll do pathways. And came to an agreement on the industrial carbon tax that's certainly less stringent than when Trudeau was prime minister. And it was smiles all around. We're going to get shovels in the ground by September of next year. And then along comes this party pooper from Cenovus.
Well,
so what's closer to the truth, that we're going to have shovels in the ground in September, or that nobody's ever going to lend us the money to build it?
I think Danielle Smith is one of the best leadership persons we've had since Ralph Klein. She's trying to, everyone's attacking her, and she's trying to be in the center, and then you have left, right, everybody attacking her. I think she did that to try to create unity and believe in the Liberal government that they're going to do something. Mr. Carney has the power and the authority as the Prime Minister of Canada to designate any pipeline anywhere, and no one can actually stop him. He's the most powerful man in Canada. He has more power than President Donald Trump. It's in our Constitution, what his word says. So he basically just has to say, look, I'll do the pipeline, we'll do some tax breaks or whatever. But if we would have kept all the pipelines going that the Trudeau government canceled, we would have had over 7 million barrels a day right now. And the government, has anybody done the calculation? Because I sure have. It's close to $600 to $800 million in tax revenue on the trans pipeline that goes to the West Coast. The government could pay for all of our programs, education, housing, you name it, if we open up like natural gas pipelines throughout the country. But we have climate cult activists pushing their ideology.
No, I understand. But I guess what I want to, I guess I'm just asking, who's telling the truth? Is Premier Smith telling the truth? We're going to have a pipeline that's going to be under construction, we're hoping by September of next year. Or is it the CEO of Cenovus who says, you're dreaming? As long as you have an industrial carbon tax, as long as you're demanding carbon capture and storage, it's not on. It's unfinanceable. Look, Tim, I got to run. I thank you for your call. I'm glad you're paying attention. I really do. And weighing in on these issues, as with all of our callers today. Be right back, though. We'll stop here. 1-833-668-2577. If you're on the line, hang on the line. The wait won't be long, and we'll get your thoughts. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yes, it is. Let's go to Gord. I believe is up next. Yeah, Gord. On Talkback. Hello, Gord.
Hi, Rob. Hello, Rob.
Yeah, hi, Gord.
Hi.
Go ahead.
A few things that always bother me in life. Money just doesn't just appear, but we've sort of been convinced that it does. And all levels of government like to bribe us with, it's called our tax dollars. People just don't make that connection. We're just so used to $1 billion meaning $1 billion. Nobody knows that it's $1,000 million. Nobody knows that.
Sure.
They just go, oh, it's another $1 billion. It's frightening. So I think that if you want to ban children, segue here, from internet use up till 16, then you should probably ask the parents to be involved with this to decide whether they want their kids to have content or not. And if they do, then they can have content. If they don't, then they don't have to. We don't need government to tell us what happens there. Because if that is the case, then you should also ban content on TV of commercials for betting. You should ban content of a sign driving down the road saying, come do this, you get that. I mean, you should ban everything that's in a kid's site. It's ridiculous. Last but not least, Rob, countries that produce oil and gas without all of these onerous, wild taxing restrictions love Canada. They laugh at us. The United States loves it. I mean, they get this crude oil in Texas and in Oklahoma, cheap, and then they sell it really expensive once they've refined it. We're so dumb. And yet nobody seems to care that we're this dumb. It's terrifying. It's terrifying.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. I was just going to say, like, nothing in Canada is really unfinanceable. I mean, there is a lender of last resort. This CEO of Cenovus says this pipeline to BC is unfinanceable, but there is a lender of last resort in the government. If the government could finance this project, just like it was willing to, it's willing to pour billions and billions of dollars into the Alto high-speed rail project. And the government's done this before. It stepped in when Kinder Morgan walked away from the Trans Mountain Expansion project. The government built that pipeline. It wasn't cheap, $35 billion to, some say it was even more than that, $53 billion. But whatever it cost, the government built it. The government gives money away to business all the time. Like, how much is it given to Canada Post? $2 billion? They just offered the other day, the airlines, come to us. You can borrow $150 million if you can't afford to buy jet fuel. WestJet said, no, thanks. We don't need the money. $200 billion to lease a spaceport in Nova Scotia? Why not a pipeline? To Red Deer, Rick. Hello, Rick.
Hello.
Hi, Rick. Yeah, hi, Rick. Good to hear from you, Rick. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think this social media ban for 16-year-olds, I mean, it's pretty obvious that it's unenforceable in the current state that we're in. But I also feel that the whole purpose of implementing it is create a problem so you can get people to buy into the solution. And I believe the solution is digital ID. And so if you want people to willingly co-opt in for digital ID, well, you're going to want to use your social media. And so that's create the problem, say it's for a good cause to save the children, the normal routine that the politicians always use, and say, well, it sucks darn, it's not working. Here's the real solution. So it's a step-by-step process. That's what I feel.
But how would digital ID be the real solution? Control?
Because digital ID,
through
you
digital
actually
ID?
have to have it with you all the time. So digital ID would be attached to a phone. And so you'd have to, if you're on that phone, it'd be your phone. Because, of course, any other ID, you can use your parents' ID, get signed in, and then they're gone, and you look at whatever you want. But if you actually have to have it on you or on your device, and it's yours specifically, then you can control it.
Okay, something to think about. Thank you for adding that in. Just before the buzzer. Thank you so much for all your calls today. Brand new topic tomorrow. And more of your calls. The latest breaking news coming up next. This is News Radio.